This is Alissa.
This is Caroline.
And this is Chelsea. Welcome to Med Surg Moments, the AMSN podcast.
This podcast is an engaging look at the lives of and surrounding medical surgical nurses.
We're proud medical surgical nurses, just like you, sharing our stories, insights, and experiences to support you in your nursing journey.
Hey guys. Unfortunately, Evie can't join us, but I am here with Caroline and Chelsea. So what's new with everybody?
Thanks. Good to be back with everyone. So my family is really into the thick of wedding planning, watching all the funny wedding movies out there. My oldest daughter gets married in March. So we are planning a wedding over 2 or 3 state lines, really. I'm in Florida. She's in Alabama. We have a lot of friends in Georgia. So we have a long distance wedding planning going on. It's logistics 101. Getting everyone's opinions and thoughts and finding common ground with everything. But it's all good fun, and we were not going to be stressed. We are not going to be stressed. We're going to have a big old party, and it's going to be the best day ever.
Is that your mantra? We're not going to be stressed.
We're not going to be stressed. And I'm just seriously, though, trying to figure out how I'm supposed to get through this without crying all day, because every time I think about it, I can tear up about it, the sheer emotion of it all. You know, and I act like I'm the only mother of the bride out there, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So anyway, that's where we're at. We've got everything pretty much nailed down now. In the new year, then we get into the showers and the tri-state wedding showers, transatlantic shower, you know, with my family over there. So it's all good fun. It's all good fun. Yeah. So that's really what's taking up a lot of my spare time right now.
I bet. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, let's check in with Chelsea. She's joining us from the road today. So we may lose her. We may not. We're going to hopefully hold on to her as long as we can. But Chelsea, what's been going on with you?
I'm heading back from North Carolina. It's midterms week here at Duke University. So I was actually visiting a friend in Charlotte, but I did my midterms there. Also recently came back from a vacation, a music festival in Las Vegas. It was my first time being out, as young people like to say. So I've gotten both vaccinations. I've also gotten my booster and my flu vaccination. So I was like, well, it's time to finally go on somewhat of a vacation. But I had midterms when I got back. So that's what I've been doing, and I'm on my way home. Tomorrow is my 28th birthday, so I'll be celebrating that. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I have had some exciting things happen lately. I just had my first article posted in the November issue, which I had mentioned on our last episode, but I also have another article coming out in the January issue that I'm really excited about. So, starting to do this freelance writing for the Med Surg magazine that's been really fun for me. So
that's great.
I think that's probably the next exciting thing that's on my pathway. So
congratulations. Well
thank
done.
you.
That's
yeah,
great.
I'm very excited about it. But we really should come back to you, Chelsea, for the ins and outs of travel nursing as you are coming to us live from your car. Maybe you could start with what made you decide to go do travel nursing? You seemed so happy where you were before.
Yeah, so I think the decision to go to travel nursing was fueled by change. And it wasn't like a bad change, more like I need to find out what's out there kind of change. So just a little bit of background. I worked for UVA Medical Center for about 5 years. I stopped working there this past July. Took about maybe a 2 to 3 week off period before I started my first travel assignment. So it was quite a bit of a transition. I was comfortable, working where I was working for 5 years. I went to UVA School of Nursing. So I decided to start and then continue my nursing career at UVA Medical Center. But it was kind of like one of those, I'm young, let's just see what else is out there, take a chance. So that's what fueled my want to start travel nursing.
That is really cool. So tell us about your first assignment.
Yeah, so my first assignment was actually not completely new territory because we still had med surg patients, but it was a neck and spine unit, mostly elective surgeries, doing laminectomies, foraminectomies, neck and spine surgery. So that was definitely new for me. When I signed on to my travel agency, I kind of wanted to be somewhere where I didn't have to go more than an hour away from where I would be staying. To receive the travel pay, you have to be 50 miles plus away from where you will be living. So that kind of fueled the hospital that I selected, and also what I communicated to my travel recruiter about where I wanted to go. So I got to this unit, some med surg patients, but mostly, like I said, neck and spine, which was new territory for me. They gave me a thorough orientation. I was super impressed with the orientation that I got. So if you're considering travel nursing, don't be afraid. You should get adequate orientation. If you feel like you're not getting that, definitely speak up for yourself. But they gave us a thorough orientation to the facility and expectations, and then to the post-op patients we will be caring for. Orientation lasted for about maybe a week and a half. And per most travel agency companies, you get 2 nights on the floor with a preceptor. And anyone listening, I would definitely suggest you have at least 2 years of experience before you start travel nursing. I know a lot of new nurses are eager and think that 1 year is adequate, but I honestly think that second year really is what makes you a top tier nurse when it comes to exposing yourself to new and different environments. But yeah, that's kind of like the start. You look at one, where you want to go, then also looking at the location from where you'll be staying, like if you want to commute or not, or if you want to go further or out of state. Travel nursing is becoming more common since COVID because so many of these hospitals are short-staffed. Traveling for med surg nurses is probably, I think, would be most common because it is such a broad specialty and we can take care of so many kinds of different patients. I never took care of neck and spine patients before my first assignment, but my background in med surg really gave me the ability to do so.
So that's a great introduction and some lessons already, Chelsea. As you just said, your med surg experience has put you in a good place because certainly in my organization, we're seeing travel nurses in all specialties and even in non-nursing specialties. We're seeing lab travelers, we're seeing respiratory therapy travelers. As you said, because of COVID, we are absolutely reliant almost at the moment with travelers for one reason or another. We describe the situation you're in as you would be considered a local traveler because you are in that 50-mile radius, and then there's the long distance traveler. I'm also encouraged to hear that you got a great orientation. In my organization, we also think we provide a great orientation. You never know until someone says that, but we're at the point where we treat our travelers really just like regular employees from the orientation perspective. It's perhaps a little more condensed and time efficient, but policy, procedure, protocol, safety, it's the same, whether you've worked there for 50 years or you're just going to be there on a 13-week contract, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I find that really interesting. Chelsea, when you were signing up, were they asking you what your skills were or what your specialty was? Or did you have to tell them, like, these are the areas I'm comfortable working in? I know a lot of people, when they sign up for traveling, they're like, oh, no, I'm only going to work in the emergency department, or I'm only going to do ICU. I was just curious how that works when you are med surg because it is so diverse.
I was pretty nervous about the onboarding process. So I'm actually a long distance traveler. So my permanent address is in Charlottesville, but from where I'm renting is close to my assignment. My previous assignment and then my future assignment, I start on December the 6th. So yeah, I was super, super nervous because I have a type A personality and I thrive in routine. So when I thought about travel nursing, I definitely was concerned about the onboarding process, but the onboarding process is very thorough. You can definitely talk to your recruiter about, okay, like what I'm used to, this is what I'm accustomed to on your profile. And this is across travel nursing agencies. You do select what specialties you have history in. So I selected Med Surg, and then they presented me with the neck and spine unit. And I was like, okay, yes, I'm willing to do that. No one forces you to sign a contract. You can read the contract. If you're like me, once I found out the name of the unit, I Google, that's your best friend. You can Google it. You can look at the hospital, look at hospital ratings, etc. You definitely have agency there. Like, no one forces you to sign your contract. You should definitely not be attesting to any specialties that you do not have. Don't be like, oh, like I'm somewhat familiar. Like, no, you need to be completely familiar with whatever specialty you choose on your application. Speaking of the onboarding process, it is a bear. They want to know everything. Like, you have to have your immunizations up to date, school. Some requirements change from hospital to hospital. You know, some hospitals require that you have certain recommendations. Like, you can't just have one from a charge nurse. You need one from a nurse manager or higher. So definitely look at the specifications that the hospital is requiring, and definitely make sure you attest to an appropriate specialty.
Interesting. So I guess the next question would be, is this all information that your agency collects for you and presents to the hospitals that you're going to travel to? Or if you're in between assignments and they're looking at the next assignment for you, or you're picking your next assignment or whatnot, if there is additional paperwork required?
Yeah, so I'll use my experience for an example. So my initial onboarding required me giving them documents to confirm that I am a nurse, first of all, that I have appropriate nursing education. So you don't have to be a college graduate, but you need to show like whatever nursing program you went through. You have to have transcripts for that, immunizations, all that stuff. And they put it in one big package for you. And then they present that package to whatever hospital you want to put your application into. I filled out my initial application. Once my application was finished, I selected which hospitals I wanted them to present my application to. I have a recruiter that's over my assignment, and then I have separate people that control my application. I have a few issues with that because so many people had their hands in the pot, but eventually everything that I need to get done got done. They give your application off to the hospitals, and then once the hospitals look at your application, they'll get back to you with a contract, maybe in like a week or two, or sometimes 3 weeks, and you can sign the contract. They give you your onboarding date, your pay, sometimes nurse to patient ratios, etc. With my next contract, I took off 3 weeks in between the end of my contract and the start of my next one because I have midterms in school. So technically, I have to, quote unquote, reapply. I keep my health insurance, which will be docked from my first paycheck of my new contract, but I have to reapply. Some travel agencies aren't like that, but because I took off more than 2 weeks, I have to reapply. Basically, I have to send in everything again, but I don't think I have to do a physical again. Some hospitals require that you do like drug testing and all that stuff again. So I do have to do another drug test for this hospital. But if you're taking off less than 2 weeks, most agencies, you don't have to do all that stuff again. You just simply apply to whatever hospital you're interested in.
Interesting. So you've chosen your next assignment, Chelsea?
Yeah. So my next assignment will be on a Med Surg unit.
In the same facility, or are you going somewhere different?
Yeah, I'm going to a different hospital this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same area, or are you traveling to somewhere completely different?
So it's the same area, but some exciting news. I just recently filled out applications for Nevada and California.
Ah.
I'm really hoping to take on next summer a job either in LA or Las Vegas.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know if you end up in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, really. So I guess the question that everybody wants to ask is, are the big bucks really there? Is the pay worth the sacrifice, if you even call it that, of moving somewhere away from home?
Or almost hassle with all this paperwork.
And the aggravation of all the paperwork, and then having to pick up and find somewhere new to stay. Unless that's the other question as well. I think a lot of people want to know, where do I live? How do I find somewhere to live? Does the company provide housing, or do you have to find somewhere yourself? And is there a financial benefit to go through the company or to find somewhere yourself?
Yeah, so I always tell people is to make a plan. So my permanent address, I live in Charlottesville, but I am working where my family lives. So I stay with family. The thing about travel nursing is that if you get audited by the IRS, you have to prove that you've duplicated your living expenses. So I pay rent in Charlottesville, but then I also pay rent, quote unquote, rent to my family that I stay with. So you can be smart about it. Like you can live where you want to live permanently, but then when you do travel nursing, you can always stay with family that you know or a friend that you know. With all the technology available now, Airbnbs, if you really want to consider a hotel, lots of hotels give special rates to travel nurses. And as to your question as to whether it's worth it, yeah. I make in a week what I made in 2 weeks at my old job. And when I would work overtime, I would make in a week what I would make in 3 weeks at my old job in 1 week. When I saw my first travel check, I was like, what? Like, I get this every week? So it's definitely worth it. And honestly, the onboarding process, it's not that difficult because, like I said, I went to UVA for nursing school and I was an employee there, and they have all of my immunizations available. So literally all I had to do was go to employee health and I got all of my documentation for my immunizations in one trip. So that was like super easy.
So the organization skills that you have and being organized obviously helped make that transition much easier than for some people. For me as an end user, processing travelers every week, there's always the clearance. They didn't clear. We didn't get this piece of paper. We didn't get that piece of paper. So we would appreciate someone like you because you're so organized and you have everything. You've got to be on top of it for sure.
No kidding.
That's probably an important message for anyone considering it. You've got to have everything together and organized.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Did you feel welcome, Chelsea? Talk to us about that. What would you say the reception is for travelers? How well received are you? Are you working with any other fellow travelers that are you banded together?
My first assignment, they were so happy to have me there because they needed help. Like I was welcomed with open arms. Everyone was willing to help me. Yes. Like they wanted me to work extra if I could. Like they loved having me there. They wanted me to sign another contract with them. Yeah, I didn't have any issues with anyone. I didn't have any issues with any of the staff nurses or patient care assistants. Everyone welcomed me with open arms. I even had a contact with another manager when our sister unit helped me out a lot. So yeah, everyone's like there and willing to help so far in my experiences. I'm hoping to have the same warm reception at the next hospital I go to. But everyone was just so happy to have me there.
That's awesome. You're like the hero with cape on, Do you have any tips for working with travel nurses from the travel nurse perspective?
Yeah, I would just say take whatever work ethic that you have at your home hospital and make sure that it transfers over to where you'll be working. I've always been a hard worker, so that wasn't an issue for me. But you do hear the horror stories about the travel nurses being lazy. And I'm not saying that travel nurses are lazy, but you hear those horror stories. Don't be that kind of travel nurse. Like, make sure you're doing your work. And honestly, the hospital I went to from a hospital that had 3 to 4 ratios, like 3 to 4 patients to one nurse, to a hospital that had 6 patients to one nurse. One night I even had 7 patients. I didn't have the option of not working for her. So it's not a walk in the park. These hospitals that you're going to, they need help. You're definitely going to be working for that check. So just make sure you take your hard work and your skills and your passion for nursing over with you to your travel assignment. And I think the next thing to do is just to have fun. I found so many new restaurants near my hospital. On my days off, I would go hang out there, or I would say that it's definitely worth it. I think everyone should take at least one travel assignment during their nursing career because it really makes you grateful for the things that you have at your home hospital. On my first assignment, it was so different from a university academic setting that UVA had. I was completely shell shocked. I was like, what? What is this? It also makes you a better nurse because you're exposing yourself to different environments. Mm-hmm. Before I took this travel assignment, I didn't know how to do phlebotomy. I didn't know how to draw people's blood because that's something that UVA has a phlebotomy team. So I never had to do that. When I found out oh snap, I have to do that myself, I learned how to do it in 2 days. And that's adding to my skill set and making me a better nurse.
Right. So what would you say your biggest surprises were? Anything unexpected that you weren't anticipating along the way?
I think my biggest surprise was the 6-to-1 ratio because my contract said 4 to 5, rarely 6. And then I got there and it's no, you have 6 patients pretty much every night. 18 patient unit with 3 nurses. And sometimes we didn't have a tech, just 3 nurses and 18 patients.
Oh,
so
wow.
I wouldn't get back home until where I was staying with family until 9:30, 10 o'clock. So I was dirt tired during this assignment. It was an adjustment, but it was worth it because I learned so much and I grew so much as a person. And then it really helped me to prioritize a lot of my self-care. Yeah. And it just, also helped to enrich my life financially, being in grad school and not really wanting to cut in half my student loans from grad school. So, but you also have to be willing to advocate for yourself. And honestly, this assignment that I chose, the hospital that I'm going to from my next assignment, I wasn't hearing anything back from any of the hospitals. So I called the hospital myself. I got in contact with the travel recruiter based for that hospital system and said, hey, has anyone looked at my application? And it had been there for over a month and hadn't heard anything. And so I talked to the person who was over the travel nurses for the hospital system. She's like, I'll interview you right now. And that's how I got my job that I'm going to next.
Good for you.
There are some barriers between your travel agency and the hospital that you may want to work for. If you're not hearing in the time frame that you want to hear, or especially with planning and stuff, like I need to know if I have a job or not, don't be afraid to call these hospitals and say, hey, what's up?
It sounds like what I'm hearing from you then is the travel nurse position is really for people who are looking for that sense of adventure or that change, people who are okay with not knowing what they're walking into all the time, but are quick to adapt, quick on their feet, ready for anything. And when you work in like an academic medical center as your only basis, you're kind of spoiled because you have a lot of resources. But you have to remember that the hospitals that are hiring travelers, they don't have all those resources and they need a lot of help.
Right.
So It sounds to me, and you can correct me if I'm not hearing you correctly, but it sounds like if you're going to go into traveling, you need to be prepared to work hard and be on your toes and prepare for anything.
Definitely. I agree to that.
Do you feel like you've walked into any situations where, other than the patient ratio, that you were unsafe or you weren't supported by the nursing team that were there? And did you feel empowered to speak up and advocate for yourself? I think you already alluded to the fact that you would do that, but did you walk into any of those situations where it was like, oh my goodness, what have I done?
I definitely had my share of those situations while I was in the hospital. Like the night I had 7 patients, I consider anything more than 5 completely unsafe, depending on the acuity of those 5 patients. But definitely unsafe. 7 super unsafe. So according to my contract, I can't have more than 6 patients. I expressed that to the charge nurse, but there was really nothing they could do about it. There were 2 nurses on the floor. So there was me and the charge nurse with all these patients. So there was really nothing that could be done about it. I had the option of walking away because I am a travel nurse and, I'm contracted. Also, I don't believe in putting my license in danger like that, because if anything were to happen to those patients, I'd be at fault.
Right.
I was pretty close to the charge nurse and thinking about the other patients. So I decided to stay.
I think from the facility perspective as well, they don't want to jeopardize patient safety. And so if you go to them and say, this is the reason why I feel like this is unsafe, there should be support from the facility, really. And they should respect your clinical judgment. That's the way I would approach it, definitely.
Just unfortunately, this hospital is like super short staffed, like hemorrhaging nurses.
Yeah. Well, so that's why you're there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's literally like no one they could have called or anything.
Yeah.
Like I stuck it out, at least until 11, until we got a 3rd nurse.
Right.
But in that situation, you could have left and that wouldn't have jeopardized your contract. Or
if you want to end your contract for whatever reason, you have the ability to do so. Like you don't have to ever work for that hospital ever again. Oh. You can say there's always an out. Like if you say, I feel unsafe or this assignment isn't appropriate, talk to your recruiter and they can get you out of there. Like they can end your contract. Once you sign your contract, it's binding. But if it comes to the circumstances like those, there's definitely an out. You can say this is not safe. That was maybe halfway through my contract. If I wanted to leave and bounce right there, you as a travel nurse, you have thousands of hospitals that need travelers that you can sign on to. So it is really nice to have that flexibility.
And I think that's important for everyone to hear that, because some people, I think, are a little scared that they sign this contract and they think they have to go through with it. So clearly, travel nursing is not for everyone. You've got to have that certain personality. What would you say now going into your 2nd contract would be the ideal nurse to go into this kind of environment?
I would say definitely experience. A lot of travel companies don't really require 1 year nursing, but I would say stick with that 2 years for yourself. Make that a requirement for yourself. Like I said, hard work. You do need to kind of be somewhat extroverted, because if you don't resign, you have new coworkers every 13 weeks. And these are the people that you're going to be working side by side with, that you're going to need to ask for help, etc. So definitely be somewhat extroverted. But at the end of the day, you're contracted, you're there to do a job. So if you don't want to make friends, you don't have to, but it would make your assignment easier. And I just say, just go for it. If you don't like it, you can always go back to being a staff nurse. There's nothing that's stopping you from going back to your home hospital or being a staff nurse somewhere.
Good advice, good tips. I'm glad you're enjoying it and it's working out for you, really. Yeah.
Thank you. I was super nervous. I'm so proud of myself for completing my first contract, especially after some challenging moments there with my first one, but I'm glad I got to finish.
You're kind of like a guest host tonight. It was such a resource already after one contract, which is wonderful because I know a lot of people are certainly enticed by the dollar amount in the ads. The bottom line is, what is the bottom line? And you've spoken to that. So we are going to let you get back to your journey and drive safely and continue to have fun on your travels and report back to us in our next episode as to how assignment number 2 goes. Hopefully that's given our listeners some insight into what questions to ask and what things to consider. Alissa and Chelsea, safe travels, and we'll talk again soon.
No kidding.
Bye, guys.
Bye. We look forward to connecting with you all on our next episode of Med Surg Moments, the AMSN podcast. In the meantime, we want to hear from you. Send us your questions, topic ideas, and feedback via our official Med Surg Moments email address, amsnpod@amsn.org. That's amsnpod@amsn.org. I'd also like to remind you to become a member or renew your membership at www.amsn.org. You'll receive lots of cool benefits and perks, such as discounted pricing on annual convention and continuing education.
We encourage you to help us spread the word and subscribe to the Med Surg Moments podcast via your smartphone podcast app to receive notifications of future episodes. Please be sure to leave us a review, tell us how we're doing, and recommend Med Surg Moments wherever you get your podcasts to help us reach even more listeners. I also invite you to join the conversation by sharing your ideas and questions on AMSN's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter pages. And don't forget to add #MedSurgMoments to your post. Simply enter AMSN in the search field on any of these social media platforms to connect with us.
The content within the Med Surg Moments podcast represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the co-hosts and may not necessarily reflect the views, thoughts, and opinions of the Academy of Medical Surgical Nurses. Until next time, I'm Chelsea.
I'm Alissa.
And I'm Caroline. And always remember, Med Surg Moments is a moment in our lives, a moment in our Med Surg careers that make a huge difference.